you tried gliding in Microsoft Flight Simulator? Well, it's something I've dabbled in a little bit in the past, but not really got into. But this new glider from Got Friends with built-in electric motor piqued my interest. It's kept me soaring through the skies for the last couple of days. I've got to tell you, it's an experience like, well, no other. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Welcome to the Sim Hangar. My name's Mark. Thanks very much for watching. We're just on the outskirts of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Directly in front of us is the distinctive shape of Sugarloaf Mountain. For our departure, we're going to be towed up by Got Friends' trusty Wilga, back to the right to head towards Christ the Redeemer, perched on top of a mountain. From here, we should be able to see that world-famous statue at about our 2 o'clock. I'm on live weather. We've got some low cloud obscuring our view. Not sure I've picked the best day for gliding, but hey, we'll give it a go. So what's the attraction for an old bush pilot like me? Well, it presents to the pilot a set of unique challenges, and one where your flying skills become more important than your ability to manage an autopilot. Inside the beautifully rendered cockpit, you'll find everything you need. Here we got flaps, our tow rope release, air brakes or spoilers, retractable gear, as well as our water ballast release. And the manual includes configuration details so you can get up in the air fairly quickly. The flaps work slightly differently to what I'm used to, in addition to the traditional improvement to lift. Pushing the flaps all the way forward help you to descend and maintain airspeed. Seems a bit odd at first, but once you use it, it all makes sense. I've hidden the flight stick and you can see the green lever there. Now adjusting my trim. Pull this lever forward to reset all your trim. Nice little function and pretty handy for landing. Please bear in mind, I'm a complete noob when it comes to gliding. This glider is modelled on its real-world counterpart, and here's the tour de force, that if you're inexperienced like me, well, it'll help get you out of trouble. There's a sizable and powerful electric motor driving that prop. When you purchase this product, it comes in two variants, a 15 and an 18 meter variant. Today I'm in the smaller of the two. The cockpit itself includes all the normal gauges you'd expect to find in a glider, but the beating heart is the central display, the LX Navigational Family Suite. In addition to providing a multitude of different navigational options, it also allows you to fully configure the cockpit, both in terms of layout and information displayed, thus improving overall situational awareness. Not going to run through all the options and features, we'll be here for 20 minutes, just touch on the highlights. Using this dial here, you can change the map display to suit your personal preference, be it satellite, topographic map, Google, or whatever you want. All the information displayed can be configured. It's referred to as the grid and can be removed if desired. By rotating the bottom left-hand dial, we can bring up further configuration information. Global settings set the units imperial or metric, as well as an inbuilt self-launch, as we've seen on other Got Friends gliders. The aircraft settings page is interesting. The aircraft, and especially the wings, will accumulate dust, bug splatter and the like. This can affect your glide performance, but once in flight, using these buttons for left and right wing respectively, you can clean your wings. I didn't even know something like that existed. You can select whether or not to have their canopy tinted, certainly helps when flying on sunny days, and whether or not to have the flam displayed. I currently have it removed. The flam warns you of traffic around you with an audible beep, as well as directional and altitude indicators. For this flight, I'm going to have it off. When gliding, I strongly recommend that you have a set of rudder pedals. They'll definitely help you with the bank and turns and will help you compensate for adverse yaw. I mentioned that you could configure the cockpit any way you wanted. This is done from the dashboard settings page, and the long and the short of it is you can change the location more or less of any instrument and place it where it suits you best. Just turn the airspeed indicator off. I'm going to do the same for the vario, which is your amount of lift indicator, and I can swap them round. It's a really nice configuration option. The only thing that can't be changed, of course, is the large display, the LX display in the center. I prefer the original layout, so just change that back quickly. On our map display, we have a host of information displayed. Under the grid settings page, this is where you can change that information, add or subtract, to suit your personal preference and type of flight, or tap the grid key and take it away completely, leaving you with just the map visible. See the Got Friends website for more details on the task, flight plan loading, and the like. As mentioned earlier, when you get the AS33, it comes in two variants, the 15-meter and 18-meter wingspan variants. But that's not all you get a ton more. Once you've selected your glider, head over to the config section, and the extent of work put into this by Godfriends becomes immediately evident. Regardless which model you choose, there's an absolute ton of different liveries to select. I haven't actually counted how many, but let's just say there's a whole lot. Once you've selected the livery, you're not done yet. Select your preferred launch method. Default is aero tow, includes a number of default aircraft, as well as the Wilga if you've previously had that. If that's not your cup of tea, you can choose a winch launch, anything from a Cybertruck to an old tractor. And last but not least, you can select autonomous. This is the self-launch system built into the LX. Well, enough of all that, let's go gliding. In Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, there's no default configuration at this time, but keybinds are detailed in the manual. But if you're new to gliding, then having visibility of the 3D thermals is very helpful. That rising hot air is what keeps you afloat and up in the air. I'll very quickly show you my configuration where I can enable the 3D thermals as well as turn them off if I want to. Head over to the control section. In this example, I'm using Virpil HOTAS system, Constellation Alpha flight stick, accompanied by the 50 CM3 throttle quad, so I can manage the electric motor. And here you can configure 3D thermal display on and off as indicated. As mentioned, you pro pilots out there won't need it, but for beginners such as myself, well, it's a big helping hand. This glider is fully VR compatible. Absolutely amazing experience, especially if used with a force feedback flight stick such as Moser. Waggle my rudders left and right to indicate I'm ready to go. The wing walker waves to the pilot on the Wilga. We're attached by the tow rope and we're ready to go. We're rolling and gentle adjustments on the ailerons and also on the rudder to keep me as directly behind the aircraft as is possible. Make sure I don't drag those massive wings on the ground. You'll probably find you need to turn the sensitivity down on your rudders. And we're up. Pulling back on my control lever so that I follow the Wilga. Gonna try and keep my nose more or less aligned with the gear on the Wilga. I can already hear those experienced glider pilots shouting at me, trying to compensate for a little bit of a crosswind we've got here, blowing from right to left. But we'll soon be turning to the right, heading to those mountains to take a look at Christ the Redeemer. My nose has dropped a little bit, so pulling back on the flight stick, try and get myself more aligned with the Wilga. In the background you should hear the variometer beeping, frequency increasing as our rate of climb increases. I've got the sound of the wind rushing past. The constant beep, however, is a little bit annoying, so I have turned it down somewhat. Now the tow plane's probably going to take me up to about 2,000 feet, but that would take me into the cloud cover, something I really want to try and avoid. Keeping an eye on my altimeter, which is bottom right on the cockpit. Climb to about 1,000 feet. Then I'm going to detach the tow rope and we're going to be on our own. That's when the fun's going to start as we turn to the right, head into the wind and soar over Rio de Janeiro. My plan is then to head to the mountains, pick up some of those thermals. Even though it's fairly overcast with low cloud, it's still pretty warm. Catch some lift and climb accordingly. Confident in the knowledge I've got an electric motor if I need it. And I suspect I will. Just over 1,000 feet now, so I'm gonna detach the tow rope by pulling the yellow handle. Tow cable released. I believe it's standard practice for the towing aircraft to turn to the left and the glider to turn to the right for obvious safety reasons. There's Rio de Janeiro directly in front of us. I want to reduce drag as much as possible, so I'm putting my gear away. Not sure if I should have done that earlier. Let me know in the comments below. Now retracting my flaps back to neutral. My variometer now indicating that I'm no longer climbing, and we'll hear it change from a beep to more or less a constant whine, indicating that we're descending. But we're okay right now. We're at, 1,000 feet? And the yaw string on the window indicating we're more or less heading directly into the wind, which is exactly what we want. Okay, I'm going to chicken out here. I'm going to start the motor, move the throttle lever to the active position. This will raise the prop into the upright position. Then we're going to hit the starter button. The prop bursts into life. and once again I've got a bit of lift. Christ the Redeemer dead ahead, and just starting to become visible. Feeding in a bit of trim now to manage my powered climb, climbing between 6 and 800 feet per minute. Looking good. We've continued our climb and now just passing 2,000 feet. There's Christ the Redeemer on our left hand there, but we're going to continue heading towards the mountains to the ridge here in the hope of picking up some lift. As shown earlier, I'm going to have a look at what the 3D thermals look like and where they are. Activate the display. Looks like the main lift is on the other side of the ridge, but it looks like we are getting some lift here. Variometer's going crazy. So I'm going to pull the throttle all the way back, park the prop, and return it to the stowed position and see how we do. Actually, picking up a little bit of turbulence now, but as suspected we are getting some lift. Now turning to the left, let's have a look at Christ the Redeemer. And we can turn the 3D thermals off now. As we pass over Sugarloaf Mountain, airport's dead ahead. I've pushed my flaps forward, which means they're in the raised position, which helps me now commence my descent whilst maintaining airspeed. Currently doing about 100 knots. Need to be very careful I don't overspeed. And I'll use my air brakes to slow me down. I've currently deployed them at about 50%. And as we're going for a landing, it's time to empty the water ballast tanks. This reduces our weight, increases our glide distance, adding a further safety margin to our landing. Now entering the downwind leg, still going fairly fast, so I'm just going to drop my gear now, perhaps a little early. Now I'm going to deploy some flaps. Once again, this will slow me down somewhat. Currently doing about 80 knots. Flying a glider I found to be very different to flying a normal powered aircraft. After flying this for a couple of days, I must say I really enjoy the landings, the need perhaps for even greater situational awareness. If nothing else, it certainly keeps you focused. That in itself stimulates the interest and creates a unique level of immersion. Now turning on to final, we're about 350 feet. Speed around 70 knots. Flaps now coming all the way down. Not going to land on the runway today, I'm going to land on the grass next to the runway. The only other time I've really done much gliding was a brief period in Gottfriend's Discus 2C, which was freeware. I'm a little bit high, speed looks okay, but I'm just going to point my nose down and bring out the air brakes a little bit, just to make sure I get down in time. Speed dropping now 50 knots. All looking good for a safe landing. Landing a glider, you don't flare, you just hold yourself horizontal to the ground, let the speed wash off for a gentle touchdown. If you're looking to spice up your flight simming, with some greater variety, then I would highly recommend try give gliding a go. Something I'm certainly going to be doing a little bit more of. And you can't go far wrong with Gotfriend's AS33ME glider for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and 24 PC and Xbox compatible. Another great product from Gotfriends. My sincere thanks for joining me today. I hope you found it useful and informative. Stay well, look after yourselves. I'll see you all again very soon. And ciao for now.